Hi, thank you for being brave enough to choose this video of many people's least favourite topic in English, namely poetry, and in particular the unseen poem exercise, in which you're presented with a chunk of poetry you've never seen before and are expected to interpret it off the cuff. Welcome then to the second in our series of presentations about making sense of poetry. We're going to explore one more item from my 12 commandments, this time vocabulary. These videos are based on my two study skills guides, Making Sense of Poetry and Part 2, which focuses on the challenge of interpreting unseen poems. Here's a reminder of the list of options I gave you in my 12 commandments. So far, we have looked at the physical appearance of the poem, including punctuation. Now we're going to dip into vocabulary. We start with what might seem at first a rather weird notion. What on earth is a word field? What springs to mind is neat little rows of plants springing up in a ploughed field. Forget that image. Word fields are rather like one of those family trees, starting with a single ancestor. Mostly people find out that this person was either a criminal transported to Australia or someone hanged on the gallows at Tyburn for stealing kisses from the magistrate's daughter. Our word fields are a bit different from that. One clear example comes from medieval society. Here it comes. This word field derives from feudalism, a rigid social structure that ran through the Middle Ages until the Great Plague, the Black Death in the mid-14th century. Top of the pile is the monarch, followed by the nobility, the knights, the clergy, tradespeople, and then finally at the bottom of the pile, the peasantry. Note that the further down the list you go, the less significant the items are in the category, but the more of them there are people-wise. There's one king, quite a few nobility, a lot of knights, even more clergy, and so on and so forth. We'll return to this image later for a quite different reason. And now for another example. Let's take a heading like body. It's a general term to which lots of other terms belong. So let's have a peep at how it works. Here comes a line of body parts. Look away now if you're squeamish. No, not those parts. So here then are three key parts of the body: arms, head, legs. Let's go down the list from head. Hair, eye, nose, ear, chin, cheek, mouth, and so forth. And the further down the tree, again, the more complicated it gets, the less important the items are. But I hope you get now the general idea of what a word field is all about. Well, the next question, obviously, is how does all this apply in poetry? Here's that Shakespeare sonnet again. There we are. Let's first dig out a word field relating to nature. Right. Are we ready? I think nature contains things like summer and May and the eye of heaven, that's the sun, and so forth. Anyway, here we go. I'm putting them in the position where they're likely to be in the word field. Summers comes first, and there are two examples of that in the poem. Summer's day and summer's lease on line 4. Now, next up, May. The month of May, part of summer, allegedly. The eye of heaven is one of the two terms used for the sun, and the second is his gold complexion. Next up, nature, top of the pile. Right, now then, let's move that across and see if we can relate the items in the first word field, nature, sun, summer and May, to the second word field. And notice that in poetry we have to be very flexible, because the head of the field, the word for the head of the field, like nature here, that itself could be completely missing from the list, and that there would be several items referred to just by pronouns, for example. Anyway, let's suck it and see. Try nature. Here we go. That's our nice little red. Here we go. By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So, nature has a changing course. Next up, the sun. Sometimes too hot, the eye of heaven shines, and sometimes his gold complexion is dimmed. So it's like Goldilocks finding that one lot of porridge is too hot and the other is too cold, and nothing is just right. And now, summer's lease hath all too short a date, so that summer itself lasts for too short a time. And thou, we'll come to thou in a minute, art more lovely and more temperate than summer. So summer is less temperate and less lovely than ... We'll look at that in a second, as I've promised. And finally, rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. So if you look all down the list, on the left hand side is nature, the sun, summer and May, and all of them are about instability, impermanence, inappropriateness, mildness, and not very pleasant at all. So there you can draw a real set of conclusions from just looking at one word field and the words that pair with it, if you like. Right, where do we go from here? I mentioned the word thou. Here we go. Word field 3 will be thou, thee, thy, and all the other related words. Word field 4, items connected with it. And those two are pretty close together, so I've stuck them all on the same panel. First of all, let's have a look at the thous. Quite a few of them, aren't there? Thee, thou, thy, thou, thou, thee. Cracky. Sounds like a Yorkshire elocution class. Right. Thee at the top. Is a summer's day, or is it? What we're trying to do by getting all these items together is comparing thou with the description of thou. Thou, more lovely and temperate. Thou is an eternal summer. Thou is related to beauty. Thou is untarnished by death, and now goes on eternally and is about life and lives. So here our comparator is not that thee or thou should be compared to the summer's day, but to the perfection of thou and thee. And the question at the end of the poem, of course, is how on earth does all that make thou and thee last? The answer is, so long as men can breathe. That's the second last line. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. And that this, of course, is the sonnet that is written telling of his love for thee. Now then, that, I think, is about as much as flesh and blood can stand. The next episode in this series takes up imagery, which is a big subject, and I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, goodbye, and thank you again, if you have been, for watching.